Good evening. Welcome to a special council meeting called this July 10th, 2014. Josephine, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Darrow.
Here.
Mr. Engel.
Here.
Ms. Hankin.
Here.
Mr. Molnar.
Here.
Ms. Kelly.
Here.
All right, we're going to move right into the agenda, which is different than other meetings. Our other meetings have been, we are in hiatus technically, so our next regular council meeting will be July 24th. And we have a couple of things that we have to determine as far as the agenda goes, but I have first on here comments from the law department representatives.
Yes, Mayor, the only ordinance really, I guess, is the appropriation ordinance, and I thank council for having a special meeting to address this. We hoped it would have been last week, but the purpose for the meeting is that the law department funding in the original budget appropriation back in March was insufficient, taking into account now that council wanted us to bill everything by the hour rather than the retainer, which is mandated by ordinance 127, 2013, and is still not being followed. But at any rate, we've now been working for 70 days in the law department without one paycheck from the city to reimburse us for the time period in those 70 days that we have worked. We have received about $5,900 that came in at the end of June for the May billings, which we sent out at the beginning of June. But that didn't nearly compensate for the work that's been going on during these past 70 days. I just want to give council a little snippet of what we have been doing during this past 70 days with no pay. And by the way, during that same 70 days, I have made 6 payrolls for my office. I have paid for my rent, I've paid for insurances, taxes, all of the health care for my employees, I've paid for my library, all of the computers, all of the fax machines, and everything that's needed in order to perform the services for the city of Macedonia, its residents, and all of the employees who work here and call upon us on a regular basis. This has been certainly a big burden for a small firm, and I'm sure that some on council were aware of that burden and hope that it would have some kind of negative impact on my ability to serve or my capability of serving. But I took an oath of office, and I will do the job despite any attempts by a few on council to try and obstruct my doing that work. Just a sample of the things that we've accomplished during this same time period of not being paid is we recovered just today $3,200 for the illegal time clocks that were paid for almost a year ago. We just got the check back today. We received a promise for reimbursement for a large part of premiums that were paid for a fleet of vehicles that we did not own during the years 2011, 2012. We have had a promise that that money will be reimbursed to us, but has not been pursued until the law department got involved. We have been negotiating and handling the tax appeal for the Board of Tax, in front of the Board of Tax Appeals on behalf of the City of Macedonia, where they are claiming over $300,000 worth of back taxes. And we have been negotiating and had a meeting with the school district in order to try and resolve those claims at a reasonable price for monies we do have on hand in order to bring a conclusion to that case. We've also been handling the defense of millions of dollars of claims against the city by individuals who wish to have our city give them permits in light of a requirement that homeowners associations be approved. During the past 2 months, 70 days, there's been multiple depositions, including my own, including the mayor's. There have been thousands of documents and pages during this whole litigation process that we have had to be involved in. We've had daily calls from almost all the departments. On a day-to-day basis, each one of your departments calls upon us either for recreation issues or legislation or records to be produced or destroyed, insurance documents to be reviewed, reviewing all permits, requests for grading, the garbage contracts had to be reviewed, the salt contracts had to be reviewed, employee complaints, citizen complaints, police and fire personnel issues, new Ohio Revised Code matters that have been adopted that we had to help implement and assist the city in making sure we are in compliance with state and federal codes relative to the energy code and other matters. We've reviewed every contract that this city had for vehicles, inspections, equipment, the fund days, all the vendors that work within the city. We've handled the NEORSD litigation and their attempts to increase the fees to all of our taxpayers. We have successfully handled that litigation, and still we have some changes in fees that we are examining, and we have been examining the past couple months to make sure that the EPA requirements and resources are fully available to this community. We've had employee health claims that have not been paid by our prior insurance carrier through the end of 2013. We have been negotiating and threatening and going to the point of getting ready to file litigation to cause the employees' health care matters that have not been paid to be paid by this prior insurance company. They have promised it, we just haven't got it yet, and until the money's in the bank, we can't stop in our relentless effort to get those claims paid for all of our employees. We've had issues with economic development, such as Bedford anodizing, the litigation related to that. Any new companies who come in and the kinds of tax breaks we can give them in order to develop have always been reviewed by us. Army Corps of Engineer complaints or concerns about excavation issues in the city. We've had numerous property issues relating to storms and drainage. The Ledge Road issue with railroad, we've had meetings on that, attempting to get the Federal Highway and Development Act and the railroad to comply with our concerns for the safety of our residents and people who transfer through the city of Macedonia. We've had extensive work on the ODOT project for the northbound ramp on 271, the expansion of Route 82 into more lanes on Phase 3. We've been involved in attempts to get the SID loans and to examine the engineering requirements to make sure we're in compliance with federal and state laws so that we can get those public funds for these types of projects. And that just goes on to the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Civil Service Commission. Those are the things we've been doing that has not been paid because of the lack of appropriations. So I would hope that council will reconsider enacting, supporting and putting appropriations in that will handle the retainer the same way as mandated by the ordinance 127, 2013. That would take away a lot of these monthly billings because almost all of the things I just told you we handled on a retainer basis. Because you wanted us to do it on an hourly, we had to go into precise times and hours, and everything we did, we put down. So I would hope council would reconsider that. Certainly we need the appropriations passed tonight and the amendments to the appropriation ordinance in order to accomplish at least paying for what's already been done. But the issue will come up again, and I implore council, if you have questions, call me. If you have issues about billing, talk to me about it. Nobody has. Everyone has had asked for anything. I've given it to them. So let's try and work together and do what has to be done for the city instead of trying to put some burden on someone who has dedicated 24 years of service to this community. And never before have I had this issue or problem in any of the 14 municipalities I've represented over the past 40 years. So I would hope that something can be done. Thank you very much.
All right, moving into the ordinance, do we have a number for that, Joe?
68.
68?
Mhm.
Do we have any discussion? No discussion?
We have to introduce it. Yeah, I think we have to have discussion.
Yeah, we can have discussion before you introduce it, or do you want to introduce it first? I imagine the finance chair will be introducing it. Would you like to have your discussion and ask questions first?
What do you want to do, Sylvie? Let's introduce it and we can start.
Okay, well, we can introduce it. It's 68, Josephine?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer ordinance 68, 2014 for its first, second, and third reading.
Second.
Now, discussion?
You just gotta
I
read
thought
it.
you were gonna
Yeah, just
amend
let
it.
me
She has to read it.
the
Go
She has
ahead.
to read it, and then we have to vote.
An ordinance amending this and supplementing the 2014 annual appropriations ordinance 2614 relative to the departments of law, dispatch, police, service, building, and other various funds.
All right, let me bring up a point of order here, because I heard we have to vote, and we do as far as all three readings. So right now, we're going to vote on the motion for three readings.
Yeah. We didn't-
That was seconded?
Yes.
Okay, that was
Sorry,
the
I-
intent.
Okay.
Okay, so we have on the floor a motion for three readings and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now,
Discussion.
discussion on the,
Right.
I have a couple questions about, we originally had a appropriation that looked a lot different than this. At 5:23 tonight, well, I'm sure most of us were driving here, this was changed dramatically. There's a lot of things added to this. We've talked about things in the 11th hour being added to it, which makes me a little uncomfortable and I'd like to have an explanation as to why that was changed and we weren't notified prior to this meeting.
Sure, you can take whatever you like out, Counselor Molnar. What Mr. Ladd had asked me today, he had a slight appropriation supplemental increase that he wanted to do. Actually, it's revenue neutral. He wanted to move some money from his architect and his noxious weeds and move them into vehicle repairs, travel, incidental, and overtime. And then also, I had a workers' compensation bill for our management. It's not the premium, it's workers' comp management team. That's for 2015. And we got the invoice in, and when we did the purchase order, I noticed that we're short $285 out of the various funds. So I threw that on the table also. And then our HR director, Betsy McCafferty, she's been asked to supplement. We have an intern that she's been wanting to get her office a little bit more organized. And she said she has plenty of money left in her part-time wages because she's not doing the hours that she anticipated this year, and we're already halfway through the year. And so she requested $3,000 moved from her part-time wages to the contract services. Everything else was part of the original ordinance that we were going to meet on that special meeting, other than the road depth materials of $85,000 it was thought to be, because I felt the minutes were so vague, and talking to some people, they weren't sure if the 85,000 full depth repairs was part of the stormwater management program. And so I wanted to make sure it was clear for me as well as the auditors especially, and I emailed her and I showed her what we had on the minutes. And she said, you know, it would be better for her and everyone else involved to stick with that same format that you see in front of you. That way there's no question of where the fund is coming from and how the transfer of money gets done. So everything else, and that's not to say that the Air Lane Drive Ordinance 38 was illegal, but it was also so vague that it didn't say that it was coming out of Fund 401, and if it was, it still needs a transfer from 101, because there is no money that comes into 401. Everything from 401 is usually just general fund money that's transferred in there. So it was a little bit of just a cleanup from the original ordinance that I did not, the Westwood and Air Lane Drive ordinance, I didn't put together. I would, if I had done that, I would have had the ordinance specify where the funds were going to come from. So there's nothing else on here, and I apologize for the late minute, like you referred to, but I thought, let's get this off the table from one more reading, or else you'd see another supplemental ordinance at the next meeting. And again, these normally, because you want line item specifications, these normally would have been handled internally, and I could have took the $26.57 as an example from the fire department, probably from his supplies and materials, or from somewhere, you know, that he could have afforded it. And so when you see some of this stuff, it's unfortunate as far as a little more detail-oriented that you would normally have not seen had we passed it at the other level of appropriations.
you
So
said a lot.
your comment about moving money, so we see the minus and the plus,
Yes.
your fund, general fund transfer to 401 fund shows you're adding 358,000. There's no minus in front of that. As well as the road materials, I'm adding 85 there and adding 85 to general fund transfer. If you're following your logic on the other one, should I have a minus in front of one of those?
No. You're actually, if you're gonna approve all those 358,000s, I'm taking $358,000 from the general fund and putting it into 401 to fund those three projects, the 160, the 115, and 83 equal 358. The road material full depth repairs is another 85,000 coming out of 401. And if you do pass that amount, because it was kind of vague on the minutes, if you do pass that amount, then the corresponding transfer from general fund will be that amount. If you decide that the full depth repairs is not gonna be funded at 85, just say you're gonna do it 50, then I would then amend that 50. The next line item to transfer then would only be 50,000. So we're increasing the budget by those amounts, actually, the 358, and that's what we talked about at that last work session, that we were gonna go ahead, since the RETA income tax, revenues were stronger than what RETA had predicted, that the council felt that they could go forward with these two road repairs and do some more work.
Scott, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Fund 120, you talk about wages from part-time wages from HR department, and it's going to contracted services.
Yes.
But then I thought you were talking about doing an office. I'm confused. Maybe I just didn't.
Part-time wages that's the line item that Betsy would have got paid from, and she's
an
currently getting
intern?
paid.
She's an intern?
No, we have an intern that's been working in our office, and then Betsy wanted to use her also, and she used, the same intern filled in for Diana when she was on vacation 2 weeks ago. So
Okay.
she's been floating around to the various departments.
Is this a paid internship? That's what I'm
$10
trying
an
to-
hour, yes, sir.
Well, I don't know that, and that's what I'm trying to ask.
Okay.
So I'm
So
sorry
the-
if I'm offended you.
This contracted services is in the finance department?
She's floating between any department that they use.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sorry to be obtuse, but Department 120, or 120 is HR, and then 310 is what?
101, 310?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, then it should have been 101, 120. I apologize, that was an error right there. I'm glad you caught that. So that would be 101, 120. I would just be moving that same $3,000 down from there.
Okay, that's what I thought. So,
Okay, thank you, yep.
all right, so this is a paid internship, and it's budget neutral in the sense that the money is already in the budget, but we're just moving it to a different line item so that she'll be paid for work done in another department. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for catching that error.
Do we need to make an amendment to Josephine?
Mr. Deemer, I just think it's a typographical error, and I could fix it before the mayor's.
That's fine.
So do we need to amend, or is that typographical?
I think it's just typographical, and I'll fix it before it's.
All right.
I
Now,
copied and pasted. If you look up top, the 310 was actually another,
Okay.
Is architectural out of the building department,
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
and you don't need that money?
I'm moving it to other line items in my budget. So I'm taking that, the 2,500 there and the 25 from, or the 2,000 from noxious weeds, putting it into vehicle repairs, gas, and overtime.
And the Westwood Airlane Stormwater adds up to 358, is what you're telling us, Scott, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the, what was the other thing here? I'm sorry.
Full depth repairs.
Yeah, was that 85, or I've heard that there was a different number being bantered?
You know, we had, and I can't remember, to tell you the truth, that we had so many numbers when we were discussing how we were gonna, try to affect Airlane and Westwood, and we were gonna go out to bids, and if there was anything left, we were gonna, there was a lot of discussion, and in that, I don't know if it really got accurately documented.
Scott, I spoke to Jim Dicatano yesterday, and after reviewing the July numbers from Rita, he and I were talking about it. I think 65 is the appropriate number, 65,000, so we can amend that.
Okay.
It was my recollection we were at 100 with that. I think it was based on the repairs that were necessary. And now it's at 85 and you're suggesting to drop it down to 65?
Well, we had money in, we had 40 in the, already in the repairs area. This was to combine with the bid for Westwood and Air Lane and try to get a general price, that's all.
So we're increasing it from 40 to 65?
We're increasing it to 105 if you look at all the, but 65 was the number for full depth repairs.
Okay.
What do you mean, where do we get 105? I'm sorry.
If you add together what we already appropriated in earlier budget, which is 40,000 for road repairs of various kinds,
Okay.
and this was to dedicate to full depth repairs, which was 65.
And of that 40, have we used any of that this year yet?
I don't know, I haven't looked at the numbers for this month.
I think that'd be important to find out, because obviously if we were figuring on 100, and I think that was based on what we felt we can complete, we would need to know that before.
Well, if we find that they've spent, they have spent something, I just don't know what the exact number is at this point in time. And I think we're safe doing that based on the numbers after the review of the July Rita, because we're really above trend that they were projecting significantly, and we're really above, we're between 10 and 15% above the 2012 numbers when we had that 0.25% in place, extra 0.25%. So I think we can afford this. I don't have any problem with putting that 65 in there.
I can answer your question, Mr. Molnar. We had 40,000 appropriated, and as at the end of June, we had spent 5194. And there's $34,000 left in that street repairs for that. And then in the stormwater repairs, still under 401, we had appropriated 20,000. We spent 43 to date, so we have 15,000. So we've spent a little bit of money, but and there's only $4,900 encumbered so far out of that 34. So there's really a balance that's not been under a purchase order for $29,900.
So are we in agreement that it's 65,000?
Yeah, I think that's the right number. That's what I'm saying.
Jim was comfortable with that,
Yes,
Sylvia?
he told me he was comfortable with 65.
Well, I want to make sure he had.
Yeah, I talked to him before.
Yeah,
he was
but
in
I
vacation.
would have liked to have known that. I mean, there were some projects he and I were talking about, now I don't know if those are cut out or what.
They're not, because we were talking a number below that
So
originally.
are we in agreement if that comes back to not be correct, then we would add that money back
Sure.
in there?
Sure,
Of course we'll deal with it.
yes,
Okay.
sure.
So why don't we amend the 65 now, so that we
Okay.
can keep this in some type of rational order?
Okay.
Do you want to make the motion?
Yeah,
Bill?
yes, I move to amend the line item 401-5605, road materials, full depth repairs, to 65,000 from 85,000. So it would be 65,000 in that line item.
And then you're also amending the general transfer from,
Yes, and I'm amending the general transfer 101-321-5371. Are those the correct numbers, Scott?
Yes.
General fund transfer for one funds full depth, where that is also modified to 65,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
okay. Are we're kind of working our way up.
Yes.
Do we have any questions about the capital, what's the dispatch capital equipment computer maintenance?
We had the battery backup in the tower, our radios, the battery backups went down, we had to replace those.
Okay. And what's computer maintenance? Just maintenance of the
It's a
system?
maintenance agreement on our server for our in-car video cameras, the computer that stores the videos.
Is this something that is an annual contract you're talking about?
It is now because the warranty's up.
So the warranty just,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
All right, and so these two are not budget neutral, they are increasing,
Yes.
all right. And so that everybody understands all these things, it seems to me that the changes for the for the building department are budget neutral. Workers' comp, it's a bill, it is what it is. And it seems like the changes in the HR for the intern is budget neutral too. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so we're actually increasing the expenditures of the city by less than $4,000, it appears to me, when you add in the workers' comp and then you add in the dispatch equipment and the computer. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Fair estimate? Okay. That then brings us to the legal department. I got emails, I think Monday from the mayor's office and from Mr. Deemert's office that sent bills. I asked for, I was offered then more in-depth billing, and I received those, and I told Mr. Deemert before I received them that I'd be happy to look at them, but I felt that other people on council had wanted to see them too, and I was not comfortable accepting bills that, for me to review and report to council, and but that I would also follow his wish that I keep them in confidence, which means that I have not spoke to anyone about them. I don't know if I know other people have asked for bills. Have they received them?
I have not, I haven't asked for them though.
I did actually go into yesterday, and Diana provided me the billing that the mayor had, which he invited us to inspect, but there was no detail in the invoices that were of most importance, which are the large billing invoices. And I had detailed questions on a number of invoices that were a part of the May 7th and June 5th billing. And some of these invoices were in excess of 9,000, excess of 7,000. So there were a number of them that I had questions on. There was no detail on there. It said billing detail is provided upon request.
Could I see your list? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Right.
Mr. Deemer, if we had paid you your retainer as was passed by the previous council, how much would have been covered in the retainer and we would have been facing outside of that? Do you have an estimate? You made the comment most of this work would have been within the retainer.
Well, sure, all of the invoice for general retainer would have been covered. Legal opinions, all of that would have been covered, so a considerable amount. And the reason, the details, I told Dave, it's up to you, Dave, if you wanted to share those with other people.
I told you I wouldn't because you told me not to. So
Well,
I said
But I
I'd keep
left
the
it to your
confidence.
discretion.
I didn't understand that. I'm trying to think, but.
The mayor has it in his discretion, if he wants to share those details. He didn't feel comfortable doing it. I recommended, Dave's a reasonable person, let's let him see if what he sees in there is something he would feel comfortable with any members of council looking at.
No, I would feel comfortable.
Okay, then you can share all you want.
Okay.
And then I'm happy to answer any questions Sylvia might have on any of the details. There's things like the Borma case, which is the employees' health care. I think there's names of employees.
I don't remember the names, but I would certainly, I think those need to be crossed out.
Well, I give that kind of detail so the mayor knows that we're
Yeah.
doing our job. Same thing with the litigation tactics in the plot case. To make those public record is probably not a fair thing to do to our taxpayers and to the employees who are being sued personally. Those probably are something that should be protected. And then on a day-to-day basis, the calls from police, fire,
sorry,
That's okay.
Listening and talking at the same time, it's a special talent lawyers have.
Is it possible that you would share that with everyone? I mean, this is a transparent council, this isn't a one-on-one.
Well, that's why I told Mr. Deemer that I wasn't accepting things and going behind council's back. So, keep talking, I'm listening.
But you are. What's the difference doing it here in the DS? Say what you want to say so everyone here can hear it.
Right.
All right, that's fine. My proposal is that the bills that Sylvia has issues with come up to about 30. So I'm gonna suggest a compromise that we appropriate 30 tonight, and then we'll deal with the ones that are issues. And if Mr. Deemert is telling me to
Do you want to pass this down?
redact those things that are, that I know are definitely confidential, like names and stuff. I didn't think they're the bills that I saw briefly, because I was in trial, had anything that was real exciting in the plow that would tell anybody anything. But that was my proposal.
Scott, could you tell me exactly what the outstanding bills are at this time?
Well, the June 10th invoices that we received, those were partially paid. The June 10th invoices totaled $19,973.60, and we paid him after that special meeting never happened. We gave him the balance, which was $5,903.69. So roughly, we owe him about $14,000. And then, from what I understand, is that his other bills for June just came in today. So I haven't had time to review them. And but he's, as far as, you know, he said that he's 70 days late, but really, our pending bills, we received them, and the mayor signed off on them on June 10th, and we received them that day. On June 10th, we stamp everything in the office. So today's July 10th. It's 30 days to the date, and we owe him for $15,000 some change as far as what's currently due.
Right, and the current bills, in other words, some of these invoices have been paid, if I'm understanding you, is that correct?
Yes.
And therefore, David, I don't think that appropriating 30,000 is appropriate. We only owe 14,000 at this point.
So let's appropriate the 14.
Well, but we have bills that I personally have problems with. And let me explain some of them.
The June bills were sent out on July 7th. They are in the city.
We haven't
The
seen
mayor
them.
had them the other day and approved them. Finance, I don't know when they get them, but council doesn't need to see them and approve them in advance. But so it has been, as I said, it's 70 days that we've been working, and we only received that $5,900.
I thought the purpose of this meeting was so that we were going to put in place a sum of money, appropriate a sum of money, so we wouldn't have to come back each and every month for every legal bill. That's my understanding. Scott, wasn't there a figure bantered around that would be good? All right, now we're done through the end of the year. We won't have to come back for any more appropriations. My memory was that was 50 grand, and well, if we make it 60 grand, we don't have to come back for any other appropriation.
I don't know if 60,000 would actually take him to the end of the year, Mayor. That would
Mr.
have to
Deemer
be
said it
his, that would have to be his, I mean, I don't think Mr. Deemer would even believe that the amount of activity that he has been working on with what we already owe him and then what's coming in.
So what was that number for? Where did that number come from, 60 grand?
I believe you, Mayor, when we had talked about it, you said put 60,000 in. Because I just said,
That's
let's put,
funny. Excuse me, if we could have a little decorum. How uncouth. What were you saying?
I believe I had originally just said, let's put 50 in the budget, and then I think you said, let's just put 60 in, and it's hard to project, Mayor, we can't, it just doesn't.
So in other words, you suggested 50,
I
not me.
I suggested 50, and then we came to, said, let's just do 60. That's what's on there now, is 60,000.
So why would that change now? Why would we go below 50?
I'm not recommending to go below 50 at all. I'm recommending we have to pay his obligation that we've, entailed. If they want to further, my opinion is the services were rendered and we have to pay, but further on down, I don't know how you can keep a cap on that because these legal services vary, the hours do. And that's the strain, whether we're talking engineering or legal, it's tough to keep a control on it.
I want to make a comment here. You indicated that you thought the purpose was to basically allocate more money into a legal fees fund so that they wouldn't have to come back to council. My objective here is to do two things. One is to understand what the bills are and why they're there. I don't have any billing of any detailed level to look at. Now, Mr. Deemert has indicated he's willing to provide that information, but I don't have it. There's new bills coming in, I understand. And what I'm hearing you say is that we've already, up through the billing that we've had for discussion here prior to this meeting, not new billing, we owe about $14,000. And if I look at the bills that we have, that have been provided, there's about $30,000 worth of bills in there. And it sounds like we paid a lot of that already, is what I'm saying. Is that correct?
It's not correct.
Oh, well, let me ask Scott so that I can understand it.
Oh, don't ask the person who's sending the invoices.
Well,
Ask
I'm
the
asking our
firsthand
finance
experience
director,
of the
sir.
work that's been done.
I'm asking the
Well,
finance
you've
director.
only asked the finance director. You've never talked to me about any of this.
I'd
from
be
January
delighted to
1st
talk
on.
to you. I'd be delighted to talk to you,
Well,
no
then why
problem.
don't you? You should be talking to me. We
How
have
many
exactly-
invoices are unpaid?
We have exactly $22,000. That's about $14,000 that has not been paid.
That's just what he
for
said.
the
June.
May work and about another 19 for the June work, so.
Scott,
So
did we
we're up to
pay, did we
34,
pay May?
almost
It's
35.
actually $36,000.
You said June
outstanding.
When he says May, that's everything that his work, and then he bills us his, the date on his May billing is June 5th. That's when it leaves his office, and we
All right.
received it on June 9th, and the mayor signed off on it on June 10th.
So
So
that's the-
those set of invoices, it's June, but they were for May work. And we received them, like I said, mayor approved them on 6/10, and the total amount of that was $19,973, and we paid the balance $5,900. So Mr. Deemer's correct, we owe him about roughly $14,000 or so for the May invoices that were, presented to us on June 10th.
Okay, and that's what I thought too. So the 60,000 number totally stunned me when I looked at it, because that is not, I knew we'd been paying bills all along, and if you're talking about 14,000, then we have to go look
Yeah,
at
but
the
The
outstanding.
14,000 is May.
Yes, that's what he said.
What about June? We're into July.
Right.
Well, we're into.
So if you only
May I-
pass enough to pay May
Yeah.
now.
We haven't paid 2 months' worth of bills.
We paid partly
you're
for
over
the
2
June
months
bills.
behind, yes.
Now,
So if you only want to pay, I don't know if Sylvia wants to listen or not, but if you only want to pay May and appropriate only 14,000, then you're going to have to come back in the end of July, or you're going to delay it another 2 months and let us be stuck for another month or two. So if you
Ask-
appropriate the $60,000, we can all become even, so to speak. There'd be money in the pot that we can work with during July and bill in August. During that same time period, I'll answer any questions on any billing detail that anybody wants to have. I'm not comfortable with betraying attorney-client privilege. The retainer stuff does mention what departments ask what questions, what employees call, what their issues are. Sometimes they're complaints, sometimes they're employee issues, sometimes there's human relations issues. Those are things that are all in the general retainer that we were paid a retainer for in the past. Now I've detailed what those daily calls are, so.
Joe, is that part of the
In the past, they
administrative,
were never written down.
is that part of the administrative function, is what you're
Of course
suggesting?
it is, yes.
I guess the question I've had, and I've asked this in the past, is why are we questioning? I mean, is there something that is of suspicion, or is there a question of impropriety? I'm trying to understand what is causing this to happen, because If you look at engineering, building, parks and rec, I don't know that we're putting them under the scrutiny that we are with the legal department. So I want to understand where these questions are coming from and why.
Okay,
Because this is an
well, let me-
administrative function, and I know that there's a lot of things in there which I think if we start opening up that can of worms, could lead to a lot of problems, and I don't want to go down that road.
Understood, Mr. Molnar. This is what I'm interested in seeing. Normal billing for attorneys includes, at least down to a very detailed level, and it has hours estimates. Did you receive hours indications on each one of the items you saw? David?
No, I saw, they were,
The hours are total at the end.
at the end, right, but not for each,
Right.
not for each line item. no.
And what is the normal practice for attorneys?
I think.
Well, I'd like to speak to that since I've been dealing
Well-
with municipal lawyers for 40-some years. I don't know how
I'm-
many Dave's
could I-
been dealing with, but you look at your bills from Squire Sanders and any of the bonding insurance companies that you have dealt with, you see a one-paragraph general explanation for services rendered during the previous month.
Okay.
And the same kind of notation that if you have a question about the details, ask.
All right, my question to you, were there hours associated with each of the line items? The
No,
answer is
no,
no. The
no.
answer is no. So what we're looking at here, and it has nothing to do with other than validating that these are appropriate bills for appropriate activities. And we do have that right because we are in charge of appropriations, and these are very big dollar numbers. That's number one. Number two, the question here is, some of these bills that we do have are bills for, and I have, I look for this because we did estimate during the budget process, and I have an email here from February 25th concerning one of the litigation items that's in the billing, and indicated that it was not going to be any more than $1,000 per month, likely less, between March and October. The actual billings are much greater than that. It appears to be that just for May, which would have been for the April, and for June, we are in the range of a total of $10,000. And this, if we were following this, it shouldn't be more than $3,000.
Well, the email you're misquoting from is an.
I have it right here.
I know you do, but you're misquoting it. It's a guesstimate that you asked for, or Dave did, somebody asked for a guesstimate as to what you think would be happening.
Mhm.
That was before the plaintiffs took a new tact and chose to amend their complaint and include the law department individually and personally in the litigation. Now that that happened, that increased the requirements for our defense. They also amended the complaint in order to cause us to have attorneys additionally in our offices representing us for that purpose, in addition to the insurance companies.
Why isn't the insurance company defending you?
The insurance company's in there to cover the actions, the damages that might occur from a compensatory manner,
But why, but what,
but they are defending us.
I understand, but.
But they're not defending the equitable portions of it, as
You're-
I tried to
but
explain.
I know, but it would seem to me, and I haven't read the amended complaint, and I'd love to see it. What equitable actions are they defending Joe Deemert from?
They're not defending equitable actions.
So
They don't cover that. They cover
I understand
the
that, so
damages.
what equitable actions are being sought
They're
against
asking
you?
for a mandamus to order us to give them a permit. They're asking for.
But that's the same as the city. They're asking the city to do that.
Right.
So the cost of defending the law department is no greater because it's the same defense.
Well, it isn't the same defense, because they're in addition asking for us to be found responsible for department heads not doing their job, or the homeowners association not doing what they're supposed to.
But that's not an equitable claim, that would be a compensatory claim.
For the damages from that.
Right.
But the equitable part would be to force me to force them, or to force all of the departments and the city to give a permit for something that's not.
Which is what they're asking the city to do anyways. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to argue, I'm trying to understand. It just seems to
I'm
me that.
happy to do that for you. I mean, I'm available for a call. I mean, if you want to do do it here on the public forum, that's fine. I can go into all the details. I'll pull the files out. They're 2 feet thick already.
But
Just
isn't
try and ask them.
I had to
litigation,
give a deposition. You know how much time that takes. You have to review all the documents and
I
all the
understand.
records and so on.
But-
That takes time.
but wait a minute, isn't litigation and personnel always executive session? That's not,
Well, it doesn't
I mean, we
matter.
really don't want to
I'm just
discuss that on the floor.
saying. And I did not agree to give you the detailed personal stuff. I left that up to Dave's discretion, and I still feel uncomfortable with it. But if you take an oath to him that you're not gonna tell anybody else and betray the trial tactics of the insurance company, as well as my office for our defense, the mayor's defense, the building commissioner's defense, then we will accept that.
Well,
You know, it just amazes me that we zoom right into the Plag case.
Yeah.
Why does that stand out? Why is Jorge Plag coming to the finance meetings to see if you're going to be, or there's gonna be something done with the lawyer? Now, the case that comes to the forefront of all of this is the Plag case. That's the case that's being scrutinized. Why?
Sylvia, what other bills are you have questions
Yeah,
with?
I
It's not
have-
just all of them, I
yes,
think
ma'am.
that's where she started.
I started because,
Well, yeah.
So what other ones,
That's
Sylvia? You got a list there?
suspect.
let me put it this way. There is a question to me, and I've checked this out, but I'm willing to refer it to the Ohio Ethics Commission, that whether or not our attorney, who is a party in the suit, can also act as our representative of the city. And I'm perfectly willing to refer it to the Ohio Ethics Commission for an advisory opinion, or to the Board of Commissioners on grievances and discipline appointed by the Ohio Supreme Court. They also give advisory opinions.
I welcome you to do that. I
And-
encourage you to do that.
And I'm
the
happy to do
meantime,
that.
David,
That's the question I have on making those kinds of payments.
You've threatened that before, but you've never questioned me on any of this. You've
I
never
haven't.
asked for a legal opinion on any of that, and you just stopped appropriating money to pay the law department.
No.
Pursue those legal remedies, but pay your lawful duty and your bills at the same time. And if you're worried about following laws, why aren't you following 127, 2013?
Speaking-
Mandates the retainer be paid. Why aren't you following the law?
Speaking of other items that
I
I
guess you
believe,
ignore my questions.
your question is just to,
You're just trying to threaten me by.
I am not
ethics,
threatening
and I am
anyone.
welcoming you to do that.
I'm not threatening you. I am not threatening anything.
Well, then you've
I
done this
just
long
asked,
ago.
Bring that up.
You said
I
this
brought it
months
up
ago.
because the question was
You
asked.
brought it up 2 or 3 months ago, you said that in executive session. You brought that up before, you said it, I encouraged you to do it. And
So
instead
what's-
now, when it comes to a head again, you just bring up.
Well-
threat.
What's the
It's an
next
ongoing
question?
threat.
Because I
next
have to
question.
admit that in our budget meeting, after the budget meeting,
So,
Okay.
before we voted, I
No.
said, let's go to the law department, you can tell them exactly what you want to see in bills, you can talk to
And
them
I
about what
have.
you want, and you refused.
No,
you
I
did.
didn't refuse.
You
I
did
did
refuse,
provide
you
it.
voted no and walked away.
And never
Yeah.
sent me anything.
I've
you-
seen something
I
where.
made that all
We
right.
did, you know that I sent a detailed billing request and format out to the council and to the
2
mayor.
weeks ago. We're talking about in
Well-
January and February, when the offer was made,
it's a 30,000 or so. Just a 30. Let's go.
We have another private meeting.
Take your time.
No, 30. He said 30.
you know,
I say this, I'm trying to get a compromise and get this thing moving and also allow people to look at the bills.
Yeah, but what's gonna be next, Dave? Are
Well,
we gonna
we'll-
start doing the same thing with engineering?
No,
I mean,
I'm not trying to-
What
all
will be
right.
the next target?
If we have to.
We pay for a certain period of time, there's a lag in billing that's compensated for by being paid a retainer. We have an engineer on a retainer, so we don't have that lag in billing.
All I'm suggesting is a way to try to move towards a resolution. And I thought that would be a sensible way
Can I
to
see this
move
piece of paper?
tonight.
Well,
And
are we
then
moving
allow-
towards
Well,
resolution if we're not paying for services rendered?
Oh, yeah.
The services rendered are not 60,000 yet. That's why I'm suggesting, I don't know whether we actually owe 14 and 22 or 30.
But we
But I
haven't
know
seen
that
those.
30,000 is approximately the amount of bills that Sylvia has questions about. I think Sylvia has, and all council members have a right to see these bills.
Yes.
And
but
they've
if we
indicated they
had
want to.
paid the retainer which
All
have been
right.
authorized by law, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, guys. So we broke the law by ignoring the pay ordinance.
You're what?
My copy.
We broke the law. You guys passed that pay ordinance. You want to ignore it,
That's yours.
and now we're having the discussion if we've got to pay our bills. One of the ways, and what I'm hearing is, we owe $36,000 in unpaid bills. 14,000 from May, 19,000 from June.
How
The
much do we owe
60,000
Mark from today, when he came
I
in?
can't bill us
I
today.
didn't see his time, it's not on the sheets yet.
Well, exactly,
But of
so in
course-
other words, it's ongoing on a daily basis.
Yes.
And that'll come in August.
So
Correct.
I'm gonna make a motion to amend. Fund 101, 150, 534, legal fees to 30,000. Is there a second?
Second,
How much?
30,000.
You owe 36. Why
Okay,
would you
make
make
it
it less than
36.
what you owe? And Mr. Deemer, I asked this question, the mayor did not know. Do we have to pay you interest?
No.
Thank you. Got that on record. If I don't pay my other
All
bills,
my
I have to pay
creditors,
interest.
I have to pay interest too, but I don't charge interest.
What is the exact
It's
dollar?
fine, it's 36, if that's a compromise that Dave's comfortable with, let's do it, but let's not drop it now because come on.
I'm not asking to drop it. I'm asking to get the bills. I will redact. I told you I would redact them.
And come in August, they're.
And I
we'll
will
be
just,
short again.
well,
That's
Joe,
fine.
we have meetings all the time.
Okay. As long as we
Now,
have
you know,
one
I am
August.
trying to find some way to piss off everybody, but reach a compromise. But usually when I'm in court and the judge looks and says everybody's unhappy, that's a good settlement. So maybe that's what I'm trying to do, to work towards compromise.
But if we compromise, I would say
Well,
compromise
if you don't
has
want
to
to
be.
compromise, you would vote no.
Wait a minute. Okay. But we got a 3-2 over here, little.
Why do you say
gab
3 to
fest.
2?
Because you guys are over there gabbing and we're over here just waiting to hear what you
We're
say.
not gabbing.
It's on TV. What my question would be.
Are we not allowed to talk to each
Authorize
other?
the dollar amount that we owe. But then we need to put something in place so we don't sit here month after month with unpaid bills because someone didn't get the detail they want or understand the detail and didn't make a phone call to get it. The administration bills are the authorization of the mayor. He's the administration. We
Yes.
basically have strangled hold the administration by putting 0 in the budget for this operation that happens every day. It's not one that we do once a year. So my compromise would be authorize tonight what we've got in here, but then a meeting's got to be held and finalized of how we're going to approve bills in the future, so Sylvia's happy with what she sees, you're happy with what you see. Everyone in this council agrees that this is the bill that should be paid. But we can't keep looking out to the public and saying, we don't pay our bills.
Okay, may I say something now, after that speech? Here's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for reasonably detailed attorney bills so that we know that there's no duplication, that there is appropriate action being taken on a legitimate item, and that we get the hours associated with these individual activities. As far as whether or not a specific bill is approved or not approved, that's not my problem. My problem is we're not following a process where we have accountability in the attorney billing. That's all this has been about. We have never said, and I want to repeat, never said that we will not pay legitimate bills from the legal department.
In
We've always,
1972, I took an oath of office to the Ohio Supreme Court.
Mr. Deemer, could I finish,
You're
please?
saying
And
the
then
wrong
you're
thing. You're
interrupting
saying the
me,
wrong things.
and
I'm
it's
not
not fair to interrupt me.
It's not fair to let you ramble on when you're saying.
I am not
answers.
rambling, sir. I'm
There has
trying,
never been a
I'm
duplication.
trying to
There's
explain
never been a
the
duplication of
position.
bills.
She didn't
There's
say there
never
Well-
was. She
been
wants to
duplicated
check.
bills.
What?
I'm just saying that that's not what you're saying.
I know
heard her
it's,
say that. She wants to make sure that I haven't
Well,
duplicated a bill.
I
Or there
am
hasn't been redundant billing. or that
Let's-
I'm doing something that's inappropriate. I lose my license if I do that.
Accountability
I'm gonna lose
means
my
that.
license for this city? don't
I
think
am
so.
not asking anything, I'm not accusing you of anything, I'm saying the validation process, which is a normal process when you're billed by anyone, is to look at the details and make sure they're adequate and accurate, that's all. And so
And why
I don't,
is it
I am
my
not, it's
part?
not a personal matter, unless on your part it is. It is
Seems like I'm
strictly
doing part.
accountability to us, and we are the representatives of the residents of this city. I am not saying anything other than that, and we have said over and over, we will pay legitimate bills that have been reviewed. And if you produce bills in the format that I have requested, there is no problem. I will be over at your office at your convenience to look at them, and we will have a discussion, always happy to have one. And I'm just saying that, from my standpoint, we need to be looking at these things. I do have a problem, the only problem I have on these things that are labeled retainer is the detail is not there. On the litigation things, I do have a problem with, I believe that we should refer that to the Ohio Ethics Commission or to the other board. And if we do that, I think that I will be satisfied with what their opinion is, whatever it is. And if they say that those are appropriate, I'm going to say fine. If they don't, if they say they're inappropriate, then you will return the funds to us, I'm assuming. So as far as I'm concerned, the compromise that's being suggested, I can support, but from going forward, we've got to have some kind of detail in the billing that I asked for and has not so far been provided. That's all I'm going to say about it.
You talk about accountability. Can I have a chance to speak, please? We talk about accountability, and Joe, this is directed to you and to you only. We passed that ordinance in 2013. What does it take to enact that and force that to be in play right now?
Obviously, I have to go to court and get a mandamus to force the 3 council persons to follow the law.
Then I would
Which
suggest that
costs
you
me
do
money.
that, because you know what? Tonight proved a lot of things for the public to see. There's a lot of whispering going on, and it's done in the public's eye. This is ludicrous. I can't believe the things that have happened tonight. I'm offended by it. The fact that you got, hold on, Dave, before you start
No,
jumping
I'm
off.
just
You have the
ready.
fact that you need to whisper on the floor in front of everyone, that's a problem. That's a big problem. That tells me that there's impropriety over on that end of the table.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done, actually.
Well, fine, let me go.
You know,
on.
this little circus you got going on over here, where you plan things out and you have things that are in violation of the Sunshine Law, which have been on TV as well, which many people have brought up to me. It's kind of a problem.
Okay.
And you continue to do it, and I'm gonna point it out every time. It's a
Good.
problem.
I wish you would, because I've done nothing wrong. I have not violated the Sunshine Law. I sit by a council person, and at the end of the meeting, we talk, or we're talking out, and someone says that's a violation of the Sunshine Law. It's not. If it is, Mr. Deemer will address it. I'll explain the facts if he wants to give a legal opinion. I've been a member of council 14 years. For 14 years, people have reached over to me. Usually it's the guy next to you, because it's pretty difficult to walk over, and say, what do you think? What do you want to do? And it's never been a violation. You've talked to people close to you during the meetings, and to suggest that there's something wrong by that, that's ridiculous. Now, to me, that's called building consensus, because what I was trying to tell Sylvia is, let's work for a compromise. I always thought, but apparently I am wrong from your opinion, that a council person should work for a consensus, not just crap at each other. So that's what I was trying to do. And for a circus, this is not a circus. You call me anytime you want. In fact, we are going to meet after tonight's meeting, I think. Maybe not. And because we try to build a consensus. So don't call me a circus. I'll still meet with you, and I'll be calm when I'm done, and I'll work for consensus. But don't crap on me.
And that's all I ask, is that the law department not be crapped on either. If Sylvia is not out there inspecting the salt deliveries and looking at the weigh slips and comparing it and weighing it, and doing that, that's the same thing as what you're trying to do to my department. You're going into such detail that you are doing with no other department. And that means you don't trust the head of that department. You don't trust the service director if you're out there checking on his salt weighing and how much gets delivered.
Mr. Deemer, may I interrupt you?
Sure.
And I understand what you're saying, but I haven't had dinner, and I'm going to
Let's do
meet,
it.
I'm going, amen, brother. And I'm going to meet with Mr. Molnar, and we're gonna
Have dinner.
work it out, baby. So, I'm gonna make a motion, even though I didn't introduce this legislation, and if I offend Sylvia, she can come at me. I'm moving that we pass ordinance 68, 2014, as amended, and immediately adjourn this session.
As
Second.
amended, did we amend that item?
To 30,000.
Did we amend to 30,000?
No.
36.
Oh, back up.
There was no roll call.
All right,
And there's-
Joe, I have the motion, don't I?
For how much, Dave?
36.
36.
36.
Said 30.
Why aren't you clapping now?
Ask the boss.
What?
36 is okay for now.
All right,
Joe, does that
so,
cover your, can I ask a question real quick? Does that cover the bills outstanding?
Yes.
That's all I wanna know.
so, if I understand, because I'm hungry and I want to go home, that what? I do get cranky, don't I? That we have an amendment for $36,000, and have we voted on that, Josephine?
We have not.
Mr. Mayor, would you call the vote on the
Mr. Are you still
amendment?
the second from the original?
Yes.
All right.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
May I proceed, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I can finish here.
Go for it.
Too. All right, I move that we pass and post ordinance number, and I lost the ordinance number because.
36, or 68.
68, 2014, as amended and according to law.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Engel? Mr. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you can start with him.
Mr. Ar-
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Oh, my gosh, should I vote for this? Yes.
Ms. Hannigan?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
Ms. Tully?
Yes.
Ordinance 68, 2014 passed.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, wait, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I jumped the boat. I apologize. Can I talk about something else?
The agenda's limited, but that's up to fellow council members.
Yes,
Mr. Darrow had an issue. She's concerned about the upcoming deposition, and she feels that she needs legal counsel. I think, no offense to Ms. Starr, I think legal counsel might not be a bad idea to hold her hand. And could we I'd like to make a motion to allow $2,000, no, that's too much, $1,000 for Rita to obtain legal counsel. Mayor, Joe, do you have a problem with that?
Well, I can't go to you because you've been added to the lawsuit and you're supposed to represent me, and I can't go to you, so I've been in a dilemma.
Are you being deposed as a council member, as a
Yes.
planning board, or did it ask just for you? Well, how is it titled?
I have to pull up the deposition. Well, Joe Deemer sent it to me, so Mr. Powell did. Whoever Mr. Powell was from your office.
We didn't send you the subpoena, that came from the plaintiffs, they said.
But Mr. Powell signed it. No, it didn't. It came from Mr. Powell.
There's two subpoenas. Two subpoenas, one from the city
And one from
attorney and,
Mr. Powell, which is your attorney.
Well, that was to bring documents, I suppose.
yes.
So,
But is the deposition addressed to you personally, or as a council member? Because I will not pay for anyone personal.
It's.
Well, the insurance company lawyer is supposed to be counsel's, he's the mayor's lawyer, the mayor doesn't have his own lawyer. The service director doesn't have his own lawyer, the building commissioner doesn't have his own lawyer.
So why would we go out
they
for
have
the insurance
Mr.
company.
Curley.
Why would you go for another lawyer?
Has Mr. Curley said he won't represent you on this?
No, I didn't ask him that.
We already adjourned, but this needs a little more discussion, because you're asking us to hire you your own lawyer,
For the deposition?
For the deposition, right.
but we're already represented. If you are part of city council, you're already represented.
Right,
If it is
exactly.
personal, then that's your personal
Yeah,
business.
it's
That's
not,
your
it's
money.
not personal. I didn't ask to get deposed, Miss Tully.
I know
So
that.
it's not
But are you
personal.
being deposed?
As a council member, as a witness,
Then we already have a law department.
and I'm not allowed to
Therefore, we
use
don't
them.
The
hire
insurance
someone.
company lawyer is representing all the individual
Right.
officials.
Right, so
And you
that's
can
who I
talk
have to
him
go to, Mr.
confidential.
Curley.
Yeah, sure, you can talk to him confidentially.
Okay, because I couldn't
And
go to
he
you.
won't charge.
Right, I know, because I couldn't go to you because you've been at
Yeah,
it.
that's fine.
And you're supposed to support me, according to the charter. You're my law department, and I can't, well, you know what I mean. I can't go to you because you've been at it, so.
All right.
Somebody has other lawyers within the firm. We've been through this before.
Right.
Okay,
Mr.
so,
I never have.
No, but, yeah.
all right.
So you should remember, we.
It sounds like Mr. Curley can function in this
Okay,
way.
so talk to Mr. Curley. Since the mayor's left, I guess we're adjourned? He was more hungry than I was.